Hello students, welcome back. In the last session we have studied about assertions in Python. In today's session we will discuss classes and object-oriented programming. The programs which we have studied up till now in Python were all based on procedural oriented programming, but Python is also object-oriented programming language. That means it supports the principles of object-oriented programming. So we can create classes and objects in Python as well. So in today's session we will discuss classes and object-oriented programming in Python. So let's start. Python is an object-oriented programming language. Python supports many principles of object-oriented programming. Unlike procedure-oriented programming, where the main emphasis is on functions, object-oriented programming stresses on objects. So you might have already studied other procedural oriented programming languages like C, C++, where the main emphasis is on functions, that is procedures. But in object oriented programming, the main emphasis it is given on the objects. An object is simply collection of data and methods. So what object contains? It simply contains collection of data and methods which operates on that data. Similarly, a class is a blueprint for object. So what is class? The class, it is you can say a blueprint or a type for object. From the class you can create any number of objects. Like if you have a blueprint of a building, you can construct many buildings by using the same blueprint. Similar way, we have class. Using the class we can create any number of objects which belongs to that class. So class here acts as a type. We will not go in detail with what is object-oriented programming. We have considered that you have already studied about object-oriented programming and different principles of object-oriented programming. We here will study how these principles are implemented or used in Python programming language. Abstract data type. In simple term, we can define abstract data type as a set of objects and the operations on those objects. So that is an abstract data type. An abstract data type, in short we call it as ADT, is a type, or you can call it as a class, for objects whose behavior is defined by set of values and set of operations. As I've said, abstract data type, it is simply set of object and operations on those objects. The definition of ADT only mentions what operations are to be performed, but not how those operations will be implemented. Now, as per the definition of ADT, it mentions only what operations we can perform by using the ADT, but not how those operations are performed internally. It is called abstract because it gives an implementation independent view. Why we call it as abstract data type? Because the implementation of the operations, it is not known to the user. User only knows what operation he can perform by using the abstract data type, but user doesn't know how those operations are performed internally. That is the reason it is called as abstract. The process of providing only essentials and hiding the details is known as abstraction. We have already studied about abstraction in Java. So abstraction simply means providing only essential details and hiding the details from the user. So abstraction simply provides the essentials and it hides the details from the user. For example, if you're calling your friend, what you do, you simply dial his number and press the call button and the call rings, but you don't know what happens internally when the call is placed. Internally, when you press a calling button, the signals are transmitted from one tower to another tower, and there are so many internal things which happens, but those things are not known to the user. So that is called as abstraction. The internal things are hidden from the user. User only knows the required things, and that is what is implemented here by using abstract data types. The user of abstract data types does not need to know how that data type is implemented. For example, we have been using primitive values, like we are using integer, that is int, float, char data types, only with the knowledge that these data types can operate and be performed on without any idea of how they are implemented. Now we have been using the primitive data values or data types in our programs, but we don't know how those data types are implemented internally. We only know what operations we can do by using these type and how those types operate, but internally how those primitive data types are implemented, these details are not known to the user, and that is why it is called as abstraction. And abstraction in Python, it is provided by classes. Okay, so let's study defining a class in Python, how classes are defined in Python. Like function definition begin with def keyword in Python, class definition always begin with class keyword. So remember class, how class is defined. Class is always defined with a class keyword followed by the name of a class in Python. We have already studied defining a class in Java. So the similar declaration is used even in Python. The first string inside the class is docstring. We have studied about docstring with respect to functions. So functions can include docstring, which gives information what the function can do. Same in a similar way, we can include docstrings even in the classes, which simply gives some description about the class, what the class can do, has a brief description about the class. Although not mandatory, this is highly recommended. It is not mandatory to include docstring in every class, but it is recommended to include a docstring. Now let us look at a simple class definition here, how a class is defined in Python. So we have class, name of the class, and there is a colon at the end, remember, and then inside the class in triple quotation mark you can see, so we have defined a docstring. So this is the docstring. So docstring simply gives information about the class. And we have one keyword defined in the class, that is pass. When you do not have any statement in the class, you can simply use a pass keyword. So later on we will study about this pass. What is this pass keyword? So this is how a class can be defined in Python. A class creates a new local namespace where all its attributes are defined. Attributes may be data or functions. Remember, whenever I define a class, this class may include the data attributes, that is the variables, and functions, that is methods. Okay, as soon as we define a class, a new class object is created with the same name. Whenever you define a class in Python with a particular name, automatically a class object is created with the same name. Suppose if I define a class with the name person, automatically a class object is created with the same name, that is person. And this class object allows us to access the different attributes as well as to instantiate new objects of that class. Now by using this class object, we can access different attributes, and we can access only the class attributes by using the class object, remember. And it can also be used to instantiate or to create an object of a class. Now let us understand this with an example. Okay, you can see here we have a class declaration, class person. So this is how we need to define a class, then a colon, and there is some indentation. You can see indentation is necessary because you need to include statement inside the class, so it needs to be indented properly. The first statement here, it is the doc string. Again you can include it in triple quotation mark. Okay, then we have a variable, that is age is equals to 10, defined inside the class. And then we have a function def, function name is greet, and it has one argument it is taking, that is self, and there is a colon. We already know the syntax of function in Python. The same syntax of function definition is used, and there is only one statement inside that function. The statement is print hello. So our class person includes one variable age and one function, that is greet. Now how we can access the members of this class person? How I can access age and how I can access the function greet from outside the class? Now you can see here how it is accessed. Print person dot age. Now I want to access this age from outside the class. It is not indented, you can see it is outside the class. So when I say person dot age, it will print the value, that is 10, because age is having value 10. Same way if I say print person dot greet, see I am calling simply greet, and this will output the function person dot greet. So this will print function person dot greet. You may say ki it is, why it is not printing hello, because greet function includes hello. But if you look at our call, we are simply calling person dot greet. Greet is also an object of person, and it is printing the type of that object. The type of object, it is function. How to access the docstring from the class? Docstring can also be accessed in a similar way. Person dot double underscore doc, again double underscore. When you use a statement like this, it will print the docstring. Docstring says this is my second class, so it will simply print, or actually our docstring includes this is a person class, so it has to be this is a person class, not second class. Okay, so our docstring actually includes this is a person class. Okay, so this is how we can define a class. We can add some members to the class, members like the data members and a function, and those functions and data members or the data members can be accessed by using the class object. Now one thing to remember here, I declared a variable called as age. This age variable, it is a class variable. It is not an instance variable. Now we have already studied about the concept of instance variable and class variable in Java. So instance variables are variables which belongs to the object of a class, whereas class variable it belongs to the class. Means every object which we create have a separate copy of instance variable, whereas in case of class variable there is only a single copy which is shared by the class, shared by all the objects of that class. So here age, it is said to be a class variable, not a instance variable. Okay, we will discuss about these things again in the later section as well. Okay, let us see now how we can create an object of a class. In the last example we have seen how we can define a function, define a class, and how a class object is created. Class object, actually it is automatically created and we can directly use it in the program, but we can even create objects of a class. So how an object is created? Class object can also be used to create new object instances of that class. The procedure to create an object is similar to a function call in Python. Now here is an example to create an object. So in the last slide we have created a class with the name person. So let's say if I want to create an object of the class person, how I can create it? So this is the object name Harry is equals to person. So object name equals to person, it is the class object. So using this syntax you can create an object in Python. So this will create a new object instance named Harry, and we can access the attributes of object using the object name prefix. Now once you have the object Harry, you can access the properties of a class by using the name Harry. So like if I want to access the method, I may say Harry dot greet to access the method greet. So attributes may be data or method. Method of an objects are corresponding to functions of that class. So we can access the attributes, data attributes or method attributes by using the newly created object. So let us see this with an example now. So let us write an example program here. So I'll open idle. Okay, I'll not create a separate file. I'll directly create a class in the shell itself. So I'll say class person colon. I'll not use the docstring, as I've said it is optional, though it is recommended. Age is 10, then def greet, it takes one argument, that is self. Okay, colon is missing. Again I need to define a class person colon age is equals to 10, then def function name is greet in bracket the argument self. Now why the argument self, that also we will discuss later on. Then there is one statement which needs to be defined, that is print will print hello. Okay, so we have created a class here. So our class name is person, it contains age and a function that is greet that prints hello. Now as I've said, whenever we define a class, automatically a class object is created. By using class object we can access the class members. See, class object can only be used to access the class members. Instance member, that is object members, cannot be accessed by using class object. So class object is always created with the same name I said. So if I say print person, so this is our class object, because class object is created with the class name. Dot age, you can see it is printing 10 because age belongs to the class, it does not belongs to instance of a class. This is a class variable. This is how a class variable is declared in Python, remember. If I say print person dot greet, now I'm trying to call a greet function by using a class object person, but I cannot call a greet function by using a class object, because greet function, it belongs to the object, it is not a class function. If I try to access it, you can see it is simply giving us an error, that is type error, unbound method greet must be called with person instance, means greet method can only be called with the instance of a person class, not with the person object itself. So you need to first create an object of person class, then you can access the greet method. Okay, so let's see how to create an object. So I'll say my obj, I'm trying to create an object with the name my obj, is equals to person. So this is the syntax to create an object in Python. So simply press an enter key, our object my obj is created. Now I will try to access the function, that is greet function. So I'll say my obj dot greet, and now you can see I'm able to access the function greet. So that can only be accessed with the instance of a class. Okay, this is how we can define a class in Python, and the object can be created by using the object name is equals to the class object. Okay, let's go back to the PPT now. Okay, you may have noticed the self parameter in the function definition. Self parameter which we have defined in the greet function but we called the method simply as the object name dot greet. If you look at the parameters to the greet method, we haven't sent any arguments to it, but still it worked. Our method greet, it is accepting one parameter, that is self, but while calling the function we are not sending any arguments there. But how did it work? You can see here in our example how we have called greet. We have called simply greet by using my obj.greet. Have we sent any arguments to it? No, we haven't sent any arguments to it. But in the function definition, if you look at, so this is a function definition greet, it is taking an argument, that is self, but while calling it we are not sending any arguments. This is because whenever an object calls its method, the object itself is passed as the first argument in Python. So Harry.greet translates into person.greet in bracket Harry. Remember, whenever an object calls its method, the object itself is passed as the first argument to it, and that happens internally automatically, or you can even call it manually as well. So whenever we write object name.greet, that is translated into person, that is the class object name, dot greet, and we have to pass our object name, the object name here. So for example, in our case, whenever I say my obj dot greet, internally it takes it as person dot greet. Internally, how it takes it? It takes it as person dot greet, and it sends the object name, that is my obj. You can see still it is working. So internally it takes it as person.greet and it sends my obj as an argument, and this my obj, it is considered as a parameter to the function greet, and function greet, if you see, it is receiving self as a parameter. We will discuss about the self in detail in the next sessions. Today we will stop here. In today's session we have discussed what is object-oriented programming, or how object-oriented program can be written in Python by using a class, and we have also seen an example program to understand how class is defined in Python and how objects can be created in Python. So we will stop here today. Thank you.